Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I would be probably a lot more excited if we were talking about a victory today, Joey, but unfortunately, we're talking about two losses. It is Memorial Day. If you're joining us live, Cubs dropped both games today of the doubleheader with the Milwaukee Brewers. First one 7-6, and the second game 3-1. But before we get into it all, Joey, my friend, how are you doing today?
Good, Ron. It's Memorial Day, so obviously doing good because of that. But after the way watching this team play the last 2 days now and 3 games in total, I'm not doing that good. Like you watch this team up and down, and it's like there's positive things to take away from this roster and in this lineup, and just the guys that we're putting out there, or Ross is putting out there in the lineup, and the rookies, the guys making their debuts. We'll get into that, but. Then you just look at the last 2 games today, the strikeouts, man. What are we doing? What was it, 12 strikeouts the first game, 15 in the second game? It's I'm not doing good, Ron. When you see that, and this team's supposed to be a more contact-oriented lineup, and you have 15 strikeouts in a game, not good.
Yeah, not good at all, my friend. I'm actually looking for that stat for you here in just a second. It was 12 in the first game today, and in the second game, it makes me want to throw up in my mouth. 15 strikeouts in the second game today. So, the Cubs they can't get hits. They're not working. A lot of guys aren't working the same at-bats they were earlier in the season, and it's frustrating. It really is. And there were some bright spots today. And let's quickly talk through just kind of the high points from each game here before we get into the weeds. But obviously 7-6 loss earlier in the game, as you noted, Joey, a pair of MLB debuts occurring for the Cubs, and actually one also occurring, oh my goodness, for the Brewers. It was their pitcher Small, only went 2 2/3 in his MLB debut, but he is the number 7 ranked prospect for the Brewers, getting the bump in the earlier game. And I'll tell you what, Joey, this might be like my highest point of the entire weekend, because I'll tell you this right here. I sit here and I scream from the rooftops that I want the Cubs to become like the Cardinals someday, where they can just pull up random dudes you've never heard of and they do well. Guess what happened today with Swarber? That's exactly what it was. And I will take that small positive, because I need something to hang on to today, because there wasn't a lot of it. But that's awesome. I mean, what a debut for him. 6 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, but only 1 earned. The defense really screwed him in that first game. Really most of the damage coming on 2 home runs that you argue because of a couple of errors, maybe one of them doesn't happen. But nonetheless, still 6 Ks, though, for him, and just 1 walk. So super encouraging there. Daniel Norris ultimately takes the loss, but pitched okay, I guess, in his 2 innings. And then Gesellman pitched literally what could be his last inning as a Cub, because then he was DFA'd after the first game, and they brought back Brandon Hughes now from Iowa with Seiya Suzuki going on the IL. So that's kind of the little bits of the first game. And then the second game, as we mentioned, a 3-1 Brewers win. Contreras, the lone run for the Cubs in this one on a solo home run. Other than that, Smiley looked fantastic in 3 innings till he got hurt. Espinosa makes his debut then. And really, actually, when you look at it, wasn't atrocious. He wasn't even bad. He really wasn't. Like, when you only give up 3 runs in your debut, or pardon me, 2 runs in your debut, because Hughes gave up the 3rd run. Like, that's really not terrible. 4 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, which you'd like to maybe see that number a little down, but still 6 strikeouts. I mean, Espinosa looked pretty good in his MLB debut today. So to your point, Joey, some of the highs, prospects making debuts and not looking atrocious. Velasquez 2 hits today as well between the 2 games. But down points, you said it best, the strikeouts, you can't have that.
Yeah, man. I mean, anytime you strand as many runners as the Cubs have been stranding in scoring position, I think that's the most frustrating part for me. And not to I'm just going to start negative because I love ending positive. Starting negatively with the runners in scoring position problem that the Cubs seemingly have been having lately, not good. And when you look at it, even going back to that White Sox game, which neither team deserved to win, that last game of the series there, because there were mistakes made on both sides. I just look at it and I'm like, that game should have been won in the ninth inning. I believe it was the ninth inning. When they had runner on third, nobody out, and you strand that guy at third, and you have back-to-back strikeouts with Wisdom, and I think it was Ortega looking. You just can't have this stuff, man. Like, you have to put the ball in play. No situational baseball, and it's a learning curve here for even guys like Christopher Morel, who you were talking about yesterday on the solo show you did, with, like, knowing your situation of when to throw through and when to just kind of tuck it and just eat the throw. Like, stuff like that. This team is still learning, but, like, the defense today, too. I mean, you talked about it with Swarmer. Pitched pretty well. I mean, he's got that long wind-up leg kick that's, like, pretty cool to see. You know what I mean? I enjoy watching him pitch because I think it's just – I like funky deliveries. I like funky wind-ups. That's just kind of my thing. I've always been into that.
Funk is fun.
Funk is fun. It's like Efros. Watching Efros pitch every day when he pitches. I love watching Efros pitch, who's kind of been struggling a little bit here lately, but I think he'll turn it around because I think it's just a rough stretch for him. But nonetheless, I mean, yeah, you said, Anderson Espinoza too. He actually was pretty good out of the bullpen. I mean, coming in like that unexpectedly for your MLB debut, which because it was an injury to Drew Smiley, who hopefully he's going to be all right. I know it's the right oblique was kind of acting up on him a little bit sore there. So we'll see, what the updates are on that. But I mean, you didn't know when he was going to come into the game because Smiley was dealing. He had a no-hitter when he left the game. So it's like, it's unfortunate to see him leave and then him giving up that double to, I believe it was Rowdy Tellez, to open the scoring for the Brewers there. I mean, we saw, like, we didn't even talk about Contreras yet, an absolute tank, capital T. I mean, that dude just went absolutely nuclear on that ball. Then I love the bat drop. There are a lot of positives even here. Like the defense, though. The defense needs to improve, man. When in key situations, it's costing this team runs. It's costing your pitchers good outings who deserve to get wins. Whether or not you're into, like, pitcher wins or not, I'm not into, like, starting pitcher wins, like, as a stat anymore. It's not relevant. But when your team loses the game, like, it's costing your team wins, that's when it becomes relevant. And right now, the hitting with runners in scoring position and the defense in some of these situations that are prolonging innings and then allowing teams to capitalize, that's hurting your ball club and costing wins. So that's what I'm not really too happy with right now.
Yeah, I totally feel that. And I think that goes back even to the series over the weekend, right, with the White Sox. Marcus Stroman absolutely dealt on Sunday, and they lose that game. That just sucks. Yeah. You can't have that. And Keegan Thompson, sure, he even said it himself. He was like, I was wild. I got away with a lot. But sometimes it's okay to be lucky. You know what I mean? Like, he got lucky, but they didn't spoil what ended up being a very strong outing from Keegan Thompson. So, yeah, you can't have that with Stroman. I mean, you had quite a bit of it with Swarmer, and then, like you said, even with Smiley and even with Espinoza. Like, if this Cubs team could freaking get back to what at least it felt like they were kind of doing early on in the season, was manufacturing kind of 4, maybe 5 runs a game. 4 runs today gets you a win. You know what I mean? Even with Espinoza giving up a couple.
That stat they mentioned on the broadcast too. Now the Cubs are 3-19 when they score fewer than 4 runs. It's like that lucky number of 4 runs, Ron. Like 16-10 when you get 4 runs or more. If you're 3-19 when you can't get 4, that just tells me right there, though, pitching on most days is not the issue. Yes, it's the issue sometimes because you're going to have these clunkers. We've seen it, and we've seen the blow-ups here in the bullpen too, especially as of late from some guys that have been, for the most part, really solid all season. But you just can't. You have to put the ball in play in some of these situations. It's not hit a home run. Milwaukee Brewers, they have. I mean, we're seeing it with these guys, though, right? Ethan Small, right now he's their number 1 pitching prospect, which, like you said, he's number 7 on Pipeline on their actual team ranks, but they don't have a ton of, like, highly ranked, thought of pitchers. But we've seen them turn out all these good pitching prospects over the recent years, like with Freddie Peralta, Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, like these Aaron Ashby today.
Lauer's kind of becoming that too.
Lauer, they've turned him into like an ace. It seems like a really high end starting pitcher, anyways.
Yeah.
And Aaron Ashby today, he looked great, right? Mm-hmm. Like he had his strikeout stuff, career high in strikeouts,
12 Ks.
Just you see the potential there, and Ethan Small could wind up being one of these guys over the next year or two that turns into that. That's what's scary because they're kind of doing what the Cubs have been doing with these pitching prospects, at least as of late, but they've been doing it a little bit longer than the Cubs have. So, it's tough to say that, like, I can't be super frustrated with the Cubs not scoring runs against them because the bullpen is insane. Yeah. You got Devin Williams with that crazy airbender changeup, which when he's matched up with somebody like Patrick Wisdom, just forget about it. It's like he was missing the ball by like 100 feet. Like there's no shot. And then Josh Hader hasn't even allowed an earned run this year. Like you get into that bullpen, if you don't get to the starting pitching, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to beat up on Milwaukee's starting pitching, and that's not easy. We see that all the time. And I think the crazy part is we don't even see any of the big guns for the Brewers in this series because Burns threw on Sunday, and then Peralta and Woodruff are both on the IL. So, like, you don't even get their three aces, and yet they still have two guys go out and, again, small, MLB debut. He had his moments where he looked really strong, but they were able to get to him a little bit. And then Ashby, who they beat up on last year, I think everybody remembers that game, his MLB debut. The Cubs got a 7-0 lead and lost 15-7.
Was that the Arrieta game? Yeah.
It sure was.
Good Lord.
Like now he looks completely different, right? He strikes out 12 over 6 innings. Like he just dealt today for the Brewers. So I agree with you, man. It's really the case where like Milwaukee is just developing these pitchers so well. They're going to be a pain in the ass. And this is, again, that benchmark, not only for the rest of the season, but now you understand looking forward what the rest of the division is going to look like. Like, I think you got a couple of years of the Reds and the Pirates still being really bad. But the Brewers are starting to develop pitching. Yeah, maybe they have to, like, piece together their lineup with low value, but they can develop pitching. That's scary. Yeah. And then, the Cardinals, who we're going to see later in the week, they kind of do the same thing. So I agree with you, man. I know we're really kind of looking at this both long and short term, but I mean, at least for today, I really do. Like, that's what I'm leaning on right now for the positivity is like the debuts of some of these guys. Swarmer being this no-name guy, 28 years old, had this just crazy path to the big leagues as well. And he comes up, looks incredible in his first start. And just that's exactly what you need to see. And Quentin even said it earlier in the comments, speaking of, because Swarmer had the crazy windup. Dontrell Willis did have a great delivery, was out of control. Fun fact, Dontrell Willis also was a Cubs prospect at one point in time before he was traded to the Marlins. So certainly worth noting there that there's a Cubby connection there with Dontrell Willis.
And then he turned into be like a guy that we had to face in the playoffs, which sucked.
Sure did.
Yeah, he was his delivery was wild, man. One of the guys that I like too, now that we're on this random topic, Hideo Nomo used to do like the spin around and the I don't know. Hideo Nomo's was kind of cool to me. I want to say Fernando Valenzuela too. He had kind of like a funky. I can't think of it off the top of my head what it was.
Name drop after name drop, Joey. We're gonna go with the okay, dude.
Dude, you give me these wind up guys. I'm all over. I love this topic.
It is a fun topic. It is a fun topic to dive into. But man, I'll tell you what, I think something else too that was at least a little encouraging. I should actually say very encouraging. Fuck it. I don't know why I'm saying a little encouraging. My Fly the W pick looks really good.
Yeah.
And Nico Horner juice doubled up on that with me for this series. And I mean, he's looking good altogether. This is a little bit of a topic where I want to center it on today's games, but I need to talk about something positive today. I really do, because these losses sucked. Because to sum it up very quickly, Joey, because I think you did a great job kind of portraying it earlier. What was frustrating about it today was you could argue they had a chance in both games. Yeah, like a legit chance. They didn't get their shit kicked in. They kicked the shit out of themselves. Like it was literally just shooting themselves in their own foot. So to get away from that,
and Milwaukee has, not to cut you off, Ron.
Yep.
Milwaukee right now in these two games, especially with no Yelich in the second game, they have a depleted lineup. Like you're looking at Tyrone Taylor being the guy that's killing the Cubs in these two games with 2 home runs. I mean, I know he's not a bad player and he's kind of excelling right now with the Brewers, but that made me think like, okay, we should at least take one of these games with this lineup that they're trotting out there. Not being the greatest Brewers lineup that we've seen. No Hunter Renfroe, like
IL.
They don't have a lot of their main guys. That's a beer burp that they normally have. So yeah, sorry, Ron, continue with what you're saying though.
No, but I was just gonna say, like, on the topic of talking about something that is good, is like Nico Horner is really starting to like come on. Like now that he's healthy, because it seemed like he was working in, like, people got to remember, and I even had to remind myself of this the other day too. Nico Horner is pretty damn close in terms of number of games played to a rookie still. Like,
yeah,
he hasn't played that many games at the big league level. I'm actually pulling up some exact numbers for myself right now here, because like he is just scratching the surface, and he's come back from this injury. A 3-hit game in the win on Saturday over the White Sox, a 3-hit game in the early game today. I mean, he is just coming
4 hard hit balls too. He could have had 4 hits on that game.
Absolutely. Just spraying the ball all around the freaking yard. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Nico Horner's played a career 147 games. He's still a rookie, technically, if you talk a whole MLB season. Like, this guy is just, I think he's really just starting to scratch the surface. I think he's going to be a player that, if this team, like, I want this team toward the end of the year to start giving me some, like, 2014 feeling, where, right, we started to see Javi Baez. Chris Bryant was just tearing it up in the minors at that point. Anthony Rizzo was really starting to come around at the MLB level. Like, there was at least excitement for the future, right? There was something to look forward to with that team. It wasn't like we're still 4 years away. It was like, hey, maybe next year we actually have a shot. And he's one of those guys. And yeah, little Yumper right here in the comments took the words right out of my mouth. He is shutting up a lot of naysayers because he's playing incredible defense at shortstop. He is starting to hit the ball around. And I think the power is going to come. I don't think Nico's ever going to be an elite power hitter, but that's okay, because if he's giving you, he almost to me could become like, and I'm not saying the exact same player, but I'm saying this type of player of like a DJ LeMahieu, right? Like, LeMahieu can give you some power. He'll give you 15. Maybe in a really good year, he gives you 20. But that batting average is always, 300? It's up there. So if Horner's a guy that can consistently hover, around 300, maybe a little above 300, he's giving you, the extra bases, because you said it, the hard hit balls. He's probably one of the, I don't know the numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but I'm willing to bet he's in the top 3 for the Cubs this season in terms of hard hit balls. It's probably him, Wilson, and maybe Seiya.
I think Wisdom's up there too.
Wisdom's got to be up there too. But that's probably your top 4, right? Like, realistically,
I haven't looked at it in a couple days, but yeah, I mean, he's been smoking the ball, especially lately, man. Like, Nico, this is the thing. I was just talking to a buddy about this the other day too, who doesn't believe that he's a shortstop full time, like moving into the future. Maybe he's not, right? Maybe he's not. They talk about the arm strength and all that. We've seen him, though, make a ton of plays in that hole, that jump throw. And, yeah, okay, it's just a jump throw play, like a one-off play that he does every now and then. But, like, the arm strength is good enough to make those throws.
I was going to say, I think his arm strength deceives a lot of people.
I think it does, too, because I honestly, this is, it's me, like, with a theory. But I think that him putting on all that strength that he did maybe a couple off seasons ago, I think that really built up his arm strength too, obviously. I mean, if he builds up the bulk strength, which is also helping with the power, like you said, he's not going to be a huge home run hitter, but a guy that hits near 300 with like 12 to 15 home runs as a middle infielder, dude, I will take that all day long. And I actually wanted to pose this on Twitter as a poll, and I might still do this later tonight. But do you think that Nico hits 300 or better, like finishes the season as a 300 or better hitter, because I'm kind of leading, like I'm thinking that that's what's going to happen if he stays healthy, and like, you know, these setbacks, obviously it didn't affect him this last time when he got hurt and then came back. He's just like on a mission right now, and actually boosted his average way up. But yeah, man, this is a guy that's for the future, I think. Like, he's not a guy that's just a placeholder for this season. He's going to be a legitimate guy in this lineup somewhere, wherever it's going to be a short second. You know, you were talking about it a little bit the other day of like him and Chris Morrell moving around potentially as you start to sign some other guys and bring guys up. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely a possibility because he's versatile enough to do it. And it's really fun to see him and even Morrell, who, man, this guy, just a spark plug at the top of the order, stealing bases.
Morrell is becoming the player that just embodies my favorite GIF that maybe exists in the world of baseball. And that is the clip from Moneyball when he says, because he gets on base. Like that's what it is for Morrell, right? Like, he's gotten on base in every single game that he's started so far at the big league level.
Yeah, what is it, 13 straight now?
Yeah, it's 12 or 13 straight. He's got like a 10-game hitting streak, which is insane. Like, sure, he's not going 4 for 5, but he's giving you good at-bats. He's getting hits. And again, reminder, he came straight from Double-A. Like, the fact that he's adapted this quickly is pretty impressive. I'm waiting for that point where, like, the league starts to catch up, because we saw that with Seiya. I want to see how he adjusts them. But again, guys that can put together good at-bats and bring a presence about them, you get excited about those kind of guys. Horner and Morrell would be an incredible middle of the infield, at least for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. And like, just going back to Nico here too, I got some splits for you real quick here. In his last 7 games, Nico Horner is slashing 400, 429, 550. In his last 15, he is slashing 314, 327, 471. And in his last 30, he's hitting 306, 333, 429. Even his last 30 games, where you could argue he was a little cooler, and maybe that earlier part he was just starting to get going. I mean, he's still a 750 OPS player for a guy that's not going to give you – he doesn't walk a terrible amount. I think that's like the one thing about Nico that you could argue keeps him from just being a little bit away from like that 900 OPS kind of player. But even over his last 7, he's doing that. He is a 900 OPS player. He's hitting 400 right now. Like I said, his last 3 games, he's got 2 games in the last 3 with 3 hits. I mean, he is just a pleasant bright spot on this team. There are some bright spots. There are guys that give me enjoyment watching Cubs baseball still. Like, it's not
100%, man,
doom and gloom, but just like,
again, that's why
they shoot themselves in the foot.
They do, and that's why, like, I hated that I was upset earlier in the game, or like towards the end of that game, when the Cubs had the bases loaded, nobody out. Nico Horner pinch hits for, I think it was Alfonso Rivas at that point in the game. Which, dude, okay, yes, it was a borderline call, right? On the outside, could have been a ball, probably was a ball, but he was called strike 3 on Nico. At that point, though, with nobody out, you need contact with the bases loaded there. And I hated myself for being upset with Nico, because it's like, I know you're cold off the bench, but you need to protect in that situation. What we've seen from Nico, though, all season, he's a guy that, like you said, he doesn't take his walks. He will protect the zone. Like, he's a guy that'll put the ball in play. So I can't really be too upset with him, because there's still, even with that at bat going down looking, there was nobody I would have rather seen in that situation up to bat with the bases loaded and nobody out than Nico Horner. So it's like, you can't be too mad at that. Like, there's so many things to be positive about.
Yeah, and just here in the comments too from Lil Yumper. Remember, people believe that Jeter was a defensive wizard. He wasn't. He was just serviceable. Nico's more than serviceable, and I agree. I think, again, Nico,
great comp too, because Jeter was known for those jump throws, but he was actually horrible. Like, his range was bad. Nico's getting to these balls and making these jump throws, that balls that he probably shouldn't be. That's why his outs above average advanced metrics, all look really fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah, Nico has been a pleasant surprise. Certainly something positive that we can get behind. But dude, I know we've touched on a lot of good. I'm sure we could be here all night long. But for sake of the time and keep things moving here, any final thoughts from? Unfortunately, again, two losses on Memorial Day to the Brewers for the Cubs today in today's doubleheader. Any final thoughts?
Not really. I guess mainly it's just cool to see these young guys come up, and even if they don't have the best debuts or the best like first week. I mean, Nelson Velasquez, he got his first 2 hits in the majors, but both of them, I believe, were infield hits. So it's like I'm just glad he got his first 2 hits in the majors. And like you said, I think you tweeted out, or the Cubbies on Tap account tweeted out, the power's coming for Nelson Velasquez. He's got some massive power. So once he kind of learns the MLB, I mean, obviously he's got some nerves here coming up too. So I don't know how long he's going to stick around here, and then before he gets sent back down. But then, like you mentioned, Gesellman, it was like, thank you for your services, man. Like he got that one solid inning, and then he just unfortunately had got to get the DFA because you need bodies out there for that doubleheader, that second game. But yeah, final thoughts. I guess it's just kind of let's stop fucking striking out so much. Let's get back to basics defensively and more growth. Like we've talked about the growing pains in the past on these shows. We're going to have some growing pains, and we're seeing it at times, but it's cool to see these guys at least get the opportunity. And, hey, people are going to bash – like, I hate when they go on these little mini losing streaks because there are so many fans out there that'll be like, see, this is why they should have spent money. This is why, blah, blah, blah. If you spend money, you sign guys, obviously with the expectation that they're going to play every day. What happens, right? You're building up this core in the farm system. Then you can't actually, you're blocking these guys from coming up and potentially struggling before they get really fucking good. So I just, yes, you want to always compete. You always want to win. But the fact that we didn't make more big signings, to me, I actually kind of wouldn't say I like it, but like it's a chance to see these guys come up and get a shot, like Morel, like Velasquez, like Anderson Espinoza. Like you wouldn't see that if they spent a ton of money.
Right. Yeah, it gives some of these guys kind of a tryout early, right? Like see who is truly ready. And I think a lot of that too, for some of these guys especially, is related to, not pitching or not playing just in general a lot for all these guys, right? Because the minor league season in 2020 was canceled, 2021, everybody was hurt. Like it's been a weird couple of years in sports in general. So certainly cool to see some of these guys come up. So I agree with you there. But yeah, I mean, my quick final thoughts here is there was some positives for the future. I absolutely think that's a absolutely massive one. I'm just so pumped again that we had the first Cardinals prospect like clone, as Quentin said earlier in the show, in Schwarber come up today and absolutely deal. I kind of hope he gets another start too, because honestly, like Miley's down, Smiley's probably going to be down now too. They need arms. I think he's going to get another look, and I hope he comes out and does something similar because, excuse me, it's going to be in another game against a really tough opponent in the Cardinals. Potentially at some point, I think he could potentially pitch Sunday if he's going off 5 days rest. So maybe you get him in that last game of the Cardinals series, but God, that'd be cool. And also, because this is true, especially when it comes to Nico Horner, advanced metrics and math are cool. They're also tough.
I figured Quentin would like that too. He's a spreadsheet guy, so he likes that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, being a sports nerd, a numbers nerd especially, is all kinds of fun. So I completely agree with you there. But Joey, we will look ahead to tomorrow's game. The Cubs and Brewers only play one on Tuesday, May 31st. Last day of May already. We're going to be in June. Crazy to think. But it is a 7:05 start. So we are back to the old school 7:05 starts. For those that, I think I mentioned this on the Sunday show, was home games in April, May, and September in Chicago. They do 6:40 weeknight starts. It goes to 7:05 once June comes around all the way through August. So it will be 7:05 for a good portion of the season now here, and that starts tomorrow. If you want to listen and you happen to just be in the Brewers Network and you're listening to Cubs on Tap, you can listen to that on the radio, WTMJ 620 and Valley Sports Wisconsin in the Milwaukee market. And for the Cubbies, the usual places, WRTO 1200, 670 The Score, and Marquee Sports Network. For this one, it's a pair of lefties on the mound for the Brewers. It will be the aforementioned left-hander Eric Lauer. He's 5-1 on the season, a 2.31 ERA and 55 Ks. He has been spectacular for the Brewers, especially now with Woodruff and Peralta down. He's going to be even more important to a team chasing a division title. And for the Cubbies, it will be friend of the program and left-hander Justin Steele on the mound. A 1-5 record, not entirely fair to him. But a 5.40 ERA and 40 Ks for Steele. Joey, I will turn it back over to you. Quick preview thoughts on tomorrow's game at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, Lauer's obviously picked up the strikeout pitch. He's worked that into his arsenal. I think he's picked up some velocity too. And the Brewers, obviously, we talked about him a little bit before, but it's going to be a challenge. It's definitely going to be a challenge against Eric Lauer. Hopefully Steele will come out there strong tomorrow and bounce back after that Cincinnati start, which, man, he looked good in the first inning. He looked really pretty good after that first inning, but ran into a little bit of a wall there in Cincy, and that was, of course, the game that was the 20-5 game, which, good Lord, that it even turned into that. It's just – you're going to have those games, though. But I'd love to see him bounce back in this situation. And, yeah, man, let's count on – hopefully Nico will be back in the lineup. I would expect him to be back in the lineup tomorrow after not being in the second game of the doubleheader today, but then pinch hitting. Carry over some of that hunger from, striking out, looking there. Like maybe he's a little bit pissed off. He could take advantage of Lauer, and let's get a W. We need to salvage something from this series.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It's going to be a tough one, and Chief Redbeard, I'm right there with you, man. So much pain today, and I want to avoid that pain tomorrow. I think that's just my thing. The Cubs need to find a way. To get to Lauer. I hope guys like Nico are in the lineup. I certainly hope we get another look at guys like Velasquez. Obviously, Morel has kind of snuggled his way into that leadoff spot, at least for the time being. Just see some of these bats. I want to see them hit better with runners in scoring position too. I think if I read correctly when we were, still recapping today's games, that first game they were like 5 for 17, maybe.
I think it was worse than that. I think it was like 2 for 17, Ron. It was
brutal, dude.
For the first game, it was bad.
Yeah, and then they were like 1-5 and 1 for 5 in the second game. So just bring in runs. Bring Cubs fans some oomph. I want to go out on May here on a high note as we ride into June, because June's schedule gets kind of crazy. So a win tomorrow would be lovely. I'd love to see Steele bounce back after that tough start last time out in Cincy. And I think that'd be a good way to set the tone going into that last game. Cubs can technically, I guess if you're counting this as the series, tonight's game obviously was technically the makeup of the game earlier in the season that was just too cold, and it ended up not even raining until the game would have been over. But
so it turns out they did not win the series on opening.
It's true. That opening weekend series. They technically split. So they technically split the 4 game at the start of the year. Now they're technically down 0-1 in this what would have been a 3-game set during this week. So it would be nice to get one tomorrow, and then you come back for the rubber match, and you have a chance to, for sake of the actual 4 games that are being played here, you split. But with all the technicalities, it would at least be nice to get a series win after splitting technically with the Brewers earlier in the season. But you start tomorrow, and that's what we hope to see. Well, Joey, before we get out of here, I do want to remind everybody, Cubs on Tap, the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out all of our great work for your literature and podcasting needs. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTapSportsNet on social media. You follow the pod-specific account here for Cubs on Tap at Cubbies on Tap. That's CUBBIES. Loose on Tap for myself on the Bluebird app. Joey's at Joey Knows Nothing. That ends in IN because that stands for win, baby. You can follow at Juice on Tap. You can also follow at Teddy Freddy 270 and all the other great people that help out with us here at Cubs on Tap. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, we got it all. And yes, again, Cubs fans, you know the drill. Send your White Sox friends to our friends over at Sox on Tap. Betting, golf, other Chicago teams, you name it, we've got it. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTapSportsNet on social media, the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Joey, always a pleasure, my friend. For those that are maybe not wanting to go to bed yet, I don't know if you work tomorrow early or what have you, but we'll be doing a little Bears talk here in a few minutes with the Bears on Tap gang. And so other than that, my friend, we wish everybody a good day and good night whenever you are listening or watching with us. And what do you say, my friend? We get out of here the only way we know how? Let's go, Cubbies.
Let's go, Cubbies.